Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here with another article review for you, and do I have the story for you? 23,000 jihadists in Britain, not 3,000 as previously claimed. It says government sources have confessed that there are at least 23,000 jihadists in Britain, more than 7 times higher than previously revealed. Until recently, the public had been led to believe there were around 3,000 known jihadists in Britain, with 500 being subject to active investigations led by MI5. Whitehall officials have now disclosed that a further 20,000 individuals have been identified as posing a quote-unquote residual risk, according to the Times. Khalid Masood, who ran down a number of pedestrians and stabbed a police constable to death outside the Palace of Westminster in March 2017, was among the pool of individuals who have been reported to the authorities, but was not under active surveillance. Well, when there's 23,000 potential jihadists in your country, it's a little more reasonable now on why people would slip through the cracks, because the cracks are massive. You can't possibly, especially in a country as small as the UK, they can't possibly watch all those people. If they had the funding of the US or something, maybe they could watch them a little better. Man, this is ridiculous. Even at 3,000, there were thought to be holes. Even at 3,000, there are now 23,000, there are now 23,000. So, the whole conversation has to change, because it can't be a matter of do a better job anymore. It now has to be a understanding that you just can't watch that many people, and there has to be a move to reduce the number. But the problem here is that the British people basically have to wake up, and not just the people but the leaders. And is this a sign, this report that came out, is it a sign that they're waking up after the sad bombing in the Ariana Grande concert that killed a bunch of children and their parents and grandparents? It was a concert that mainly children go to, and they bombed it with a nail bomb, which they basically put nuts, bolts, screws, nails, and then put some explosives in a canister and light it up, and it basically shoots those nails and nuts and bolts and stuff into your body, and that's how it kills you. It's pretty brutal. So they did this to children. And in the Western society, if there's one way to wake people up, it's attack the children. So, and attack women. And children and women were, and girls were attacked probably more than any other group in this last attack. And maybe that was a mistake by the Islamists. Well, it says Manchester Arena killer Salman Abedi, a son of Libyan refugees with Islamist links, had also been reported to the authorities, but as with Masood, limited resources allowed him to slip through the surveillance net. I mean, we almost have to look at it differently. Sure, they have limited resources, but it's just, we shouldn't really blame the resources. You could quadruple their resources, and they probably still wouldn't be able to cover them all. So it's more just the vast number that they have to cover. Senior National Coordinator for Counterterrorism Neil Basu revealed that terror suspects are being arrested on a near daily basis in Britain shortly after the Westminster attack, an early hint at the scale of the challenge which Britain faces. It's also it could be an early hint at the change that the British politicians and British police are willing to make. Because if they do come through and continue arresting these people, then having more jihadists but actually being on the path to, and having the attitude to solve it is a situation I'd much rather have than, having fewer jihadists but not having the mindset that it needs to change. Like 3,000 is still a significant number, so I'd rather have 23,000 jihadists in my country and have an attitude to change it than 3,000 and not change it. So it's Nigel Farage said UK authorities have identified 23,000 potential jihadist extremists. The problem is much worse than we first thought. I mean, even politicians had no idea. Farage, he is, heavily involved in politics, and he was a political leader, and he didn't know. You have to think, if the British politicians knew, maybe they would have had a different attitude towards some of these policies. But let's see what the Labour Party comes out and says, I guess. But Anthony Glees, the Center for Security and Intelligence Studies director, who recently estimated the number of jihadists in Britain at between 6,000 and 10,000. Now, he was doubling and over tripling the number, and he was still basically got the number, only at half. His high-end range was less than half of what actually potentially exists. Described the Whitehall revelations as horrifying. So if you try to say that, maybe he's looking at the numbers differently or something, no. Even he is saying that it's horrifying. It really shows that the issue is much bigger than any of these people who are in the know about a lot of this stuff, or thought they were. They actually aren't in the know, and they're all horrified. To have 23,000 potential killers in our midst is horrifying. We should double the size of MI5, as we did in World War II, and expand the number of intelligence-led police by thousands, he said. We can't go on as if this wasn't happening. To call for numbers, flat rate maybe is not the same as World War II, but to call for a ramp-up equivalent to the ramp-up they faced in World War II. This really shows how significant this issue is. This is a war, and if people don't wake up, they're going to lose the war. It only takes one. I always say it only takes one to start a war. So you can deny that you're in a war all you want, but if someone declares war on you and they keep attacking you and attacking you and attacking you, you can put your head in the sand all you want, but that doesn't mean you're not in a war. Colonel Richard Kemp, a former member of Cobra Committee and a Joint Intelligence Committee, as well as commander of British forces in Helmand, Afghanistan, has also called for robust action, saying that all foreign nationals on the terror watch list who cannot be prosecuted should be deported or interned. So it seems like, by these comments, maybe he was even caught off guard. So, so we'll see what they actually do, but here's a little clip I'll play.
The problem is there are 3,000 known jihadists on the streets.
Now listen, his comments here are on the assumption that there are 3,000 jihadists.
Of the UK today, our intelligence services and police, no matter how good they are, they cannot monitor all of them, they can't control all of them, and therefore people...
There you have it. their intelligence cannot monitor and control all 3,000. Now, how many of the 23,000 can they monitor and control?
People like the bomber in Manchester and also the attacker in Westminster a couple of months before, these people were known to the security services, yet they slip through the net. The reason is because they have to prioritize and they sometimes get it wrong. It's not their fault, but that's the way it is. We need to help them to do their job better by removing as many of these people out of this country as we possibly can.
How about you guys stop arresting Tommy Robinson every time he points out where, there is a threat. And that might go a long ways. Stop wasting resources arresting Tommy Robinson when he's not doing anything wrong and ignoring the real threats of your country. So it says every single person who we have intelligence upon, who is known to be involved in terrorism, who is not a UK citizen, and who we cannot prosecute in the courts, we get rid of out of this country. We deport them, we send them back to where they came from, he said. We do not allow them to roam free on our streets and murder and maim and disfigure our children in the way they did in Manchester recently. I really think this is the moment the UK wakes up. The population, the majority of it, was starting to wake up. They did Brexit mainly because of this issue. But it wasn't really enough because it was a split public, and you had the politicians were mainly ignoring the issue. Well, Brexit happened, and now we have this attack, and now we have the release of this report that it's actually 23,000 jihadists. According to the Times. So, I think now we're going to start, someone must have leaked it. I think we're starting to see the wake up of the country. And I think you're going to see more and more of the public go against these jihadists. And you do want to protect civil rights as much as possible, but you cannot pretend like these jihadists are interested in being a part of the UK. They're not interested in that. They're interested in attacking the UK. These are literally soldiers. That's how they have to be viewed. They're being viewed as citizens or immigrants. They have to be viewed as soldiers. They are enemy combatants. I think the UK should consider, if they're not UK citizens, of calling them enemy combatants and putting them in prisons, basically, like Gitmo, that are for POWs and enemy combatants. And it's probably a step you don't want to take, but you might have to. And just be careful on who you arrest, and don't go after UK citizens and put them in Gitmo. But these guys coming from outside the country are enemy combatants. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as you can. It's bad news, but to put a positive spin on it, especially if you're from the UK, I think this means that, especially with the Manchester bombing, the country is waking up and there's hope for the future. Would you rather have more jihadists in your country and a mindset of it being an issue you have to face? Or would you rather go back to a couple years ago, or even a year ago, where there were fewer jihadists, but it wasn't seen as an issue that needed to be fixed? You're on the right track, and sometimes you have to go take a step back to take 2 steps forward, but I think you're on the right path. Have a great day, guys.